In today's video, we're taking a look at some potential offseason moves from the Ottawa Senators. Many feel they need a major upgrade in the top 6 forward category. Who might they go after? Could it be Kevin Fiala or Claude Giroux? Plus, we have some updates on the Vancouver Canucks coaching situation, some trade talk involving the Washington Capitals, a major update as well involving some of the concerns we've learned regarding the Arizona Coyotes Tempe Arena bid, and we have another college free agent signing as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. First up, we got another signing, another college undrafted free agent here. The Boston Bruins have signed Georgi Merkulov, who's a left winger, 21 years old from Russia. Has been playing college hockey. He's an undrafted player. Gets a 3-year entry-level contract to join the Bruins organization. So another prospect leaving college hockey, making the scene. There's still lots of other NHL prospects in the college scene as well. That's certainly going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. We did learn that one of the more interesting ones, Sabres goalie prospect Eric Portillo, will be returning to the Michigan Wolverines next year, so he will not be signing and turning pro. The Sabres do hold his rights for another year, so nothing to really be concerned about from the Sabres perspective. And from all accounts, from what we've heard, it sounds like he's had some really positive and good conversations with Sabres management, and we don't have any reason to think at this point that he wouldn't want to sign there. Clearly, him and Devin Levi could be a big part of the team's goaltending future, along with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. The Sabres, after not that long ago, with the, look back a year ago, for example, the depth chart and the cupboards was pretty bare when it comes to goalie prospects outside of UPL, and now they have a couple more real interesting ones playing in the college hockey scene, and both will continue to do that next season. And of course, with Devin Levi being winning the Mike Richter Award for top goalie in the NCAA, that's certainly a big jump for him. Obviously, he had a tremendous season, and he's going to go back next year and probably dominate even further. So we'll see how much these two goalie prospects can continue to blossom here for the Buffalo Sabres. We continue to keep an eye on other players like Matty Beniers in Seattle. Plus, there's lots of other interesting ones too that we don't know for sure what they're up to yet. So we'll have to watch that. It's going to be a very interesting group of players to keep our eyes on. Of course, we also got a quick injury update. Samuel Girard is expected to finally return to the lineup here for the Avalanche tonight. He's been out of action for about a month, so that'll be a big boost for them on the back end for sure. So we'll see how they continue their push here towards securing first place in the Western Conference. And we do have a suspension as well. Islanders center Casey Cizikas was suspended for a game for boarding against Brendan Smith of the Carolina Hurricanes, and that game took place yesterday. So that's all of those updates. Now, as I mentioned, we do have some updates regarding the Arizona Coyotes arena bid in Tempe for their new building. Of course, we had talked about on Friday, I believe, so yesterday, about some questions that were being raised. All we really learned from the Tempe City Council is that they wasn't ready to vote on it or anything like that just yet, that it was basically sent back for clarification on a bunch of items, but we don't know exactly what those clarifications or what those questions were. Now, there is a letter that was been making its rounds here through social media. We were able to learn a little bit. This doesn't mean that we know everything on the questions. There could be other questions completely in other categories, for example, but the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration, did send a letter, which is, like I said, that's been making its rounds. So we're able to read through the letter and kind of clarify, obviously, what their concerns are, and if their concerns are being, obviously relayed to the Tempe City Council, then those same concerns are likely being passed along to the developers here to try to overcome that, to make everybody satisfied. So certainly, as we talked about before, there is airport concerns, because obviously there's a very close by, very large airport in Phoenix. So obviously the airport concerns that the residential portion of the project would be considered incompatible land use by the FAA. That's what the airport has been saying, and this letter from the FAA expresses those concerns exactly. So clearly, that's a potential major issue. There is FAA warning saying that, for one, they can't use federal funds to make the buildings more soundproof, and number two, Tempe as a city would be required to notify any investors, homeowners, business owners, etc. that are involved in a project about direct flyover noise that they would be exposed to. So that's certainly something that could be a big deal for anybody who's looking to invest in this project or wants to be putting a business there, or to any of the residential people, anybody who wants to buy any of that. So, that's a big concern. If you have airports or, air craft going overhead all the time, it's a lot of noise. It's certainly a major concern. I believe there's the runway is 2 miles away or something to that effect. So it's very, very, very close. And there's lots of other types of concerns within that too. And obviously the other part of this letter also says that the FAA would be forwarding noise complaints directly to the city of Tempe. So obviously it'd be up to them to deal with this. Now, this is not the first time that these types of concerns have come up, because there's been other projects certainly in the area that have been discussed. And of course, the city of Tempe, this isn't really new information for them, so they should have been aware of that anyway. So I'm not really entirely convinced that that's not something that they can't overcome. So I don't know if that's really going to be like a be-all, end-all that could derail the project, but I would suspect that there probably is other questions on the financing side of things, and we don't really have a lot of those pertinent details to really know exactly where things sit. We know that it was going to be funded privately, but there's still lots of questions, like I said before, based on their prior relationship with the city of Glendale and Gila River Arena. You have to think that they're going to be posing a lot of questions around, how stable and how much, likelihood that they can pull this off. They're going to need some verification on things, I am sure, but obviously in the agreement with ASU, they had to pony up a lot of money up front. So I would assume where things are at with that right now, that they were able to do that. When it came time, even though there's putting pressure on them from Glendale to get stuff paid up, they were able to do that, which kind of is mind-boggling. If they were able to do it so quickly, why were they behind in the first place? Was it more of a political game? I don't know. I mean, there's lots of questions that we don't know the answers to, but certainly those are some of the concerns for the Coyotes arena bid. We don't really know everything else, but there certainly could be more that we don't know. Like I said, if you don't know the questions, you don't know the answers, and therefore you don't know if it's really a positive, negative. At this point, we're going to say that it's pretty much neutral, because like I said, we don't have reason to be negative or positive yet based on what we've learned here so far. So that's what we know on that front. Of course, the Vancouver Canucks is another interesting team to watch here after the season, especially. We know that they've been a much better team under new head coach Bruce Boudreau, and there were some recent comments from Patrick Allvin, the new GM of the Canucks, when he was asked about the coaching situation. All he really would say was that the Canucks will be basically reviewing everything and making decisions after the season. He had prime opportunity, I thought, to give Boudreau a little bit of a vote of confidence, so to speak, and he didn't take the opportunity. So we've got a lot of people talking. Elliot Friedman has been saying that based on what he's hearing, he's not a guarantee that Bruce is going to be out or anything like that, but he said something just doesn't seem right. A lot of people are confused as to why they would be reluctant at this point to extend him, considering how good of a job he has done. Elliot had a lot of concerns over that, saying that something seemed like it might be up and we should watch that situation. But now there's a new article out today talking about the same sort of thing. And Allvin again was asked about the coaching situation. He kind of said some of the same things, saying that the coaching situation would be evaluated at the end of the year. But when asked about Bruce, he did say that Bruce has done a great job and his concern. And when he was said, is it possible Bruce Boudreau could be back next season behind the bench? He said, absolutely. Absolutely. So goes to think that I don't know that there's as much to that as we might have originally thought. I guess until they make a decision, you just never know. But it's certainly fair to say that the team is in much better shape now than it was early on when they were struggling under Travis Green. And what decision they make, I don't know. But I would think, based on how Bruce has done as a head coach, that to, even if it's not a long-term extension, to offer him at least a couple more years, to me would seem very reasonable. You know that they're likely going to be making at least a couple of moves to kind of reshape their roster a little bit. We don't know exactly what they're going to do, of course, but there's been lots of talk. We've talked about all the rumors floating around out there and who they might move or what moves and changes they might make, but we don't know for sure what that's going to be as of yet. But be interesting to see where they go from here. Now, as I talked about before, we do have some rumors to look at here today. One's out of Washington, actually, is based on an article in The Athletic looking at the future of some of their players. We know that the Washington Capitals right now now where they're certainly not having a bad season, but they're certainly not as dominant as they once were. They're likely going to finish as a wild card team, at least that's how it looks today. There's enough hockey left, though, that certainly is not a given, and it very well could change. They could work their way back into the top three if they are much hotter, say, than Pittsburgh, who's been not doing so great as of late. I think they're like 2-6-1 or 2-6-2 or something like that. They've only got a couple of regulation wins in their last 10, so it's certainly been on the colder side of things. If that continues, maybe Pittsburgh will slip down and Washington will work their way back in. You never know. But fair to say that the Capitals are certainly an older team. All their, the bulk of their core and their key players are all, north of 30, up there in age. You get Ovechkin, you get Backstrom, been there a long time. You get John Carlson. Of course, you get TJ Oshie. Tom Wilson's not quite as old as them, but been there a while. But, just a lot of their core guys are not young anymore, so they certainly need to figure out a way, and they have done that to a degree this year, working in some of their younger players, like Connor McMichael, for example, and they have some more that need to be done as well. They have obviously a younger goaltending tandem with Vanecek and Samsonov, which we've talked about could possibly be changed next year. I know it's the inconsistency with Samsonov appears to be a little bit, getting on the management's idea that maybe they shouldn't be running with this tandem moving forward. We'll see on that. But the main name that came up in this article was Lars Eller. Obviously an opportunity to maybe give a bigger role for Connor McMichael if Eller's not in the lineup. He still has another year left on his contract, but it doesn't mean that he wouldn't be a tradable asset. With 1 year left and, considering Lars Eller's had a pretty long, successful career as like a third line center who's a responsible, decent 200-foot player who can kill penalties and stuff, he would probably get some interest to be a bottom six forward in other teams, I am sure. So there was some talk and speculation that he could very well be somebody that they do consider trading this offseason in order to get a little bit more youth and speed into that lineup. But again, a lot of these decisions that we're talking about for offseason moves for teams going to the playoffs especially will probably be largely based on what we see in the playoffs too. So we got to keep that in mind as well. Now, one team not heading for the playoffs, but is destined for potentially a couple of big moves this offseason is the Ottawa Senators. The Senators are a team that I think, and overall the results this year might not be much in the way of progress, at least some people look at it that way. But, if you really break things down and you take a look at the fact that they had, like a lot of teams, a real bad COVID situation early on. They played a lot of games short, 8-9 players out of the lineup. It was basically for a while there, for a few weeks, they were like an American Hockey League team. That certainly hurt. They, of course, have had a lot of injuries, which I know is not something that other teams don't go through, but they've had a lot of reasons to be optimistic, I think, moving forward based on what they have in their lineup here. But if you look at a lot of statistical categories, especially on the offensive side of the game, they have made a lot of improvements. It hasn't all translated to wins just yet, but it's working in the right direction. Many feel that they're still a top six forward away and one more top four defenseman away from really being a lot more competitive night in and night out. Now, if you look at their top six forwards right now, you've got obviously a top line of Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson. You got Timmy Stützle, plays a lot on the second line. Obviously, Matthew Joseph, who's come over, and Nick Paltry from Tampa has been on fire. Now, whether or not he can stay there and be consistent to be a top six forward all next year is debatable. I think there's a lot of people that do have a fair bit of confidence that could be, but you have to be prepared that he might have to be a third line player who can go up and down your lineup depending on how he's playing and where he fits in against any particular team. So, you look at that, you probably still need one more top six forward to really solidify things in that lineup. You got Connor Brown, who often plays second line as well. But if you can get to the point that guys like Joseph and Connor Brown are on line three, they're good at, very speedy forwards who are good at killing penalties as well. Alex Formanton's another one. You have enough guys like that you need somebody else who can give you an extra offensive push. So that's why they're looking at either Claude Giroux via free agency or maybe Kevin Fiala via trade. There's an Athletic article from Ian Mendez I was looking at today, analyzing which might be the best option for the Senators to take a look at this year. And I know on the defensive side of the puck, they do have Jake Sanderson coming, who should be good, but he's only going to be a rookie. There's going to be time for adjustment there. The veteran guys they have are just not strong enough to really insulate the young guys. So if you get Shabbat, you've got Artem Zub, who's been a real stabilizer back there. You get Sanderson coming. Hopefully Eric Brandstrom will continue to develop. but you could use another guy or two on that right side, especially, or like really the right side especially here, that would take the pressure off the kids a little bit, and it can actually play. Travis Hamonic's been a decent addition so far. Have no issues there, but like if they could acquire somebody like a Shea Theodore, even, it would be another name that comes to mind, which was mentioned. I've seen in social media talking about the Senators need to take advantage of teams that are strapped against the cap to get themselves another player, and Theodore would be a nice find. I'm not suggesting that there's any rumors saying that the Golden Knights are going to trade him or that they should trade him or anything like that, but if you look at their cap situation, there was some talk before that with Alex Petrangelo's contract and being such a high-paying number one defenseman, that a guy like Theodore might become a cap casualty depending on how the rest of their lineup goes. So there's obviously lots to look at here, but the main points of the article is Fiala or Giroux. Now, Mendez tended to decide more on the Giroux side of things, given the fact that he's an unrestricted free agent. You would not have to give up any assets to acquire him. So that does make a lot of sense. I mean, but at the same time, the Sens do have a lot of assets they can afford to part with for the right player. So obviously Fiala's a lot younger, but might prove to be more expensive as well. So it's hard to say. Minnesota and Ottawa have been scouting each other, not so much lately, but back about a month ago before the deadline, they were scouting each other a lot, which led a lot of people to think that there would be an offseason trade coming later, and that very well could be. You never know. But when it comes to Giroux, I think a lot of that's going to be dependent on whether or not he is successful in getting a Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. If he is, that'll probably increase the likelihood he might be willing to come to Ottawa. But this article, and there's been probably 2 or 3 others at different sources that all said that Claude Giroux's interest in going home to Ottawa is very intriguing to him. He's been doing a lot of research and thinking about it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Of course, we have to confirm that the Senators, would want to sign him, and I can't see why they wouldn't. For somebody like him who could be a great mentor as a center iceman, but somebody who can also be on the wing as well, great leader, I think he'd be a great addition for what they're missing, and it would be somebody who they would not have to sign super long term. At his age, we're probably looking at maybe a 3 or 4 year contract, somebody who could be there on a short term, so when some of these other younger guys start to graduate into their more expensive contracts, he'd be off the books. At the same time, Kevin Fiala could grow with the team and be a longer term solution. So as far as which it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, there's no guarantee they do either one, but I would love your opinion, especially if you're Sens fans out there. They clearly need another top 6 forward. Which of these guys do you think they should target, or is there somebody else that you feel would be a better solution that either through free agency or through trade that they should target this offseason? Personally, I'm kind of torn here. I see the benefits of both sides, and I don't know which one they think they should do. So let me know what you think, and we can discuss further in the comments. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.